We have new pieces on the union piece. We have, and we have this big discussion after we get off the floor on the transit corridors. So welcome everybody, new week. We're all refreshed after town meeting, and it is Tuesday, March 10th, and we're back in Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, where we're working on a housing bill. And we have the Vermont League of Cities and Towns and our planners here to help us improve section 1, which is our housing targets, which is where we're blending a lot of our work together. The work we did on Act 181, working with our planners to have every town develop their own housing targets that are realistic and embedded into our plans. And we welcome Sam to give us Vermont League of Cities and Towns perspective on this proposal.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Samantha Sheehan, the Municipal Policy and Advocacy Specialist for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and happy to be talking to you today about Section 1 of S328. So we have had some conversations with the administration before the session about their ideas in this direction. And it's something we can generally support in concept, the work happening at the Citizen Planning Commission level to thoughtfully incorporate local housing targets along with a mid-range plan for the community to achieve those targets. And it's also worth saying that we hear often from our municipal leaders, of course, that housing is their top concern and that the availability and affordability of housing is a top issue for local officials, but also that they feel like they have pulled every lever they can. That we have many communities that are very housing ambitious who, before the Home Act, before Act 181, had taken really innovative and ambitious approaches to supporting the opportunity for more housing in their community through changes to local zoning and regulations and other local initiatives, and feel constrained still to this day by some of the regulatory authorities and tools that are in the hands of state government. So we're open to a process that helps work through those and discuss them in the municipal plan, both in terms of opportunities for housing creation, but also real constraints and limitations, and maybe ideas about how state and local government can continue moving forward together to unlock housing opportunities at the local level. That said, the language currently in the draft, we find in some places not quite appropriate for a municipal planning document, which is not a regulatory document. It's not enforceable. It doesn't have the force of law, of ordinance, or bylaw. And also in some cases sort of too specific and beyond the scope and capability of most citizen planners. So remember that our municipal plans start at the Citizen Planning Commission, and even at the local official level, the vast majority of our communities are run entirely by volunteers. So more than 70% of towns have less than 2,500 population. These are small communities working through big questions, and we want to make sure that what is required in statute is achievable and within the resources of every planning commission and legislative body. So early this morning, I sent Sarah a memo. Our approach at this point,
we have it right here.
Great. So, you'll hear from Catherine. We, I think, have a lot of the same concerns with.
We need to land, if we can, come together on figuring that out if we can today.
Okay. I think there's probably more than one approach to this. What we've offered you is to strike language. So I'll actually just screen share, which is maybe like the easiest and fastest way to approach that. And I had to request.
No,
Okay.
the bill just disappeared and I think happens.
Would you like me to get you to the draft?
Yeah, I think I just had it right here. Okay.
Great.
Let's go through it.
Okay. So basically, the sort of introduction purpose is fine. We would strike and from subsection 1 and provide regulations that allow for it, because again, that's just not enough. The municipal plan is not where regulations live. So strike that. In subsection 1A, strike this highlighted language, which is basically an inventory of location, age, condition, occupancy. This is not data that's readily available unless there is a fresh current max reappraisal.
Could we, is it information worth knowing? I would think it might be worth knowing for the town. Could we put in language that says, begin to work developing a way to collect this kind of data? Is this valuable? I mean, I would think this would be valuable to have.
I mean, this is the type of information that's valuable to have in something like a needs assessment or a feasibility study. That's not what a municipal planning document is, and in many cases, there would not be a substantial value to having this information municipality wide. It might be that in a zoning district, in a tier 1B, in a downtown development plan, this would be more useful and important to know down to this level. I think, but for a more broad application, we're talking 251 municipalities. I think knowing the targets, knowing the overall existing residential inventory and what could be achieved through rehabilitation or leveraging underutilized properties as opposed to new construction, that has broad application. Knowing the sort of age of construction and current occupancy is much harder to get at and is important for every municipality to know across its whole grand list. So that's what we're thinking there. And then same thing, this is a very resource intensive type of inventory that's described in subsection 1B. That again is not particularly necessary or useful in order to get started on a housing plan to reach the target.
The targets that we want to
reach. And right. Is of, this is something that would be done by a sort of specialized housing feasibility study conducted by a firm that would cost $30,000 to $50,000. Like this is not approachable for most planning commissions.
Got it.
And then sort of similarly, we would strike in subsection D just a detailed description. This is a planning document. It's informed and created by the community. It's adopted by the legislative body. It goes through the statutory checks with VHCD and the regional planners and other necessary partners. And it goes through a long engagement process in the public, where specific direction to achieve some of the ideas in the plan happen is in the resolution of the legislative body. Like that's the appropriate place for detailed direction to the planning commission to reform or create or adopt new regulations that would support the municipal plan. So we think, just cut back the language a little bit and to be more aligned with what a municipal plan is and how it's used by the legislative body.
Right. And so can I just check in, just given how tight our time is?
Yeah.
Catherine, are those proposed cuts okay with you as well at this point?
They're okay with me. I would go farther.
Okay.
Much further.
Okay, so that much further. Okay. Well, we're going to keep housing target, guys. This is an important piece, but.
And then, that's basically it.
And then you, great. Okay. And all those changes are here in this.
Yes. I guess maybe the last thing I'll say is like, this is really important to us. This last subsection 5, that the amount of detail provided beyond the minimum is at the discretion of the legislative body. It's conceptually important to us that the requirement is to adopt the targets, but to identify opportunities and barriers to achieving those targets. And if the town wants to do more, if they want an inventory of
Right, they can always.
brownfields, if they want an inventory of unoccupied, uninhabited houses that they want the targets for redevelopment or to bring back online, that's optional and is done in a way that's useful to support their municipal plan, but is not a statutory obligation of the elements of the municipal plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Committee thoughts? In theory, I appreciate, because it's a lot of work. The rest implies a huge amount of work, and
Huge
not
amount of
just like right
Yeah.
for the planning.
Yeah.
The planning, the town plan.
I guess that's one.
Yeah.
So I agree that we don't want to put owners' work on there. My impression, I do like the idea of urban versus rural, so the bigger communities having higher expectations. I think Patrick's going to speak to that. But my impression of comprehensive plans, when they go through this process, they're once every 8 or 10 years. And they're already usually sometimes engaging in consultants. So it's as much as it might be $50,000 for this, but if it's part of the overall, no. So it's
Well, most-
consultants.
Maybe South Berlin is not ready.
Yeah, sometimes, but remember that the position of any municipal, so they have to update their municipal plan. Which requires a quorum of volunteers that can dedicate the necessary time and work product. They typically would apply for a municipal grant through JCB, a municipal planning grant that's competitive, and they may or may not be granted it. Then they would look for someone to fill that planning position under the grant. Typically, it's a planner from the RPC. Sometimes they go out to like a UTL or something. And then they have to work on the availability of that planner combined with the quorum and the publicly warned meetings. And then they have to navigate that statutory deadline in order to produce the work product of the municipal plan. These are typically, it's like $15,000 and $30,000 planning grants that they're working with. So when you see a community, like my community Hancock actually is going through a housing feasibility study for a specific site proposed for redevelopment right now. We got a CDBG grant in order to use a planner from Two Rivers who has supported bringing that, or we got a planning grant. They put out the RFP with assistance from the RPC, and then we're able to hire White and Burke as a consultant for the feasibility study. And they're doing all this market research. So they're looking at the agent inventory of the existing housing stock, the amount of current available rentals, how many beds are in those rentals. Should we have more 1 bedrooms? Should we have more 3 bedrooms? But that's very intensive work. That's a $50,000 grant that is hiring White and Burke to facilitate for one slated redevelopment. So that's like a much more typical experience of a municipality than like those that have 5-8-person planning departments, or more resources to bring in targeted.
Or a
Consultants.
volunteer planning commission that
Right.
needs 3 people.
Exactly.
So this has to be sort of arranged from South Burlington, the sublime, to
Yeah.
the less sublime.
You're accusing me of having South Burlington bias.
Sublime, just.
They have a great plan for housing. They have a great plan for housing.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So thank you, Sam. If it's okay with you, given our time, I'd love to pivot to
It's great. Yes.
Cynthia. Cynthia. Cynthia.
That's nice name.
No, but Catherine is much more regal. Catherine's a queenly. Catherine, welcome.
Thank you very much. For the record, I'm Catherine Dimitrick with Northwest Regional Planning Commission, and the testimony I'm going to give you today is my own, but I have coordinated with 3 or 4 other RPC directors, and they're all like,
Right. And can we just begin with, we've just heard testimony from VLCT. I take it you have to give comments from the corner comments. You are okay with those proposals, and you would suggest we go further.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're okay with those proposals so far?
yeah. So
So Cam is listening, so we're redrafting it
Yeah.
as we're all listening. Cam
And
is
you
listening.
have a copy of my testimony.
Yes, we have it right here.
So obviously, we agree with the importance of including housing targets. The regional planning commissions have been meeting with all of our towns to go over the municipal housing targets as part of the Act 181 planning application.
Thomas, would you pass this down? to Catherine, please?
Thank you. I don't know where that left out of my throat. Thank you so much. And so we've been talking about these housing targets with our municipalities since the fall,
Right.
and really having these amazing conversations. Municipal plans already are required to address the housing targets. So the housing element right now in statute requires towns to include a program for public and private actions to address housing needs and targets identified by the regional planning commissions. So there's already a statement in statute that requires towns to address these municipal housing targets in their municipal plans. We haven't had a round of new plans yet to see what that looks like, to see how our municipality is going to address these new housing targets provided by the regional planning commissions. I have several concerns about what's proposed in S328. The first being that just structurally, it's set up as something separate from the town plans. It's a separate section of statute that's being added. So it's outside and apart from the required elements of the town plan and as an add-on. And so,
Well, I assume this was incorporated in that section.
no, not as it's drafted right now. It's a new section of statute. And so it requires towns to address housing with this housing target report, but they also will still need to do this housing element in their municipal plan. And so the two don't talk to each other right now. And so
Talk to each other.
I think they do need to talk to each other. So that is one concern just structurally that I have. And then as it's drafted right now, as you heard from your last witness, that it really is onerous. It doesn't meet, it's not achievable by most municipalities in the state. And so my recommendation would be that instead of creating a new section and a new report, can we beef up the housing element section that's already in statute by plucking some of the important items from this section? And specifically, what I would recommend is that we add to the housing element a little more specificity, saying that this program for public and private actions must include an analysis of regulatory and physical constraints preventing a municipality from meeting the targets, as well as they would have to include how they are making progress toward meeting those targets. And I think that those two additions would result in really adding some specificity to what towns need to do.
So if it's okay with the committee, I think we're probably all in agreement with you. We don't want to create a separate piece of section. We wanted to incorporate this. I think we all had assumed this was incorporated into those statutes. I would ask you both to work with Cam to see if we can come up with a new draft of section 1 ASAP. So if you'd be kind enough to email your comments to Cam. Cam, you're listening, so I'm just gonna play this to you. I think that we're all probably in agreement that that would be what we would want, and look at that in the next day or so. Is that okay?
Great.
Yeah, that's
Great. We don't want this to be a burden, but we want it to this, we would hope would sort of underscore what may already be in statute, but we want to underscore its importance and the investment we've made in all this work, because we haven't actually gone town by town yet setting those targets until now.
Right,
Last
exactly.
meeting.
And this is new information. And so I think it's fair to add a little more specificity to what towns are required to include in their town plans.
Thank you.
Is what's being asked to do, particularly by smaller municipalities?
As it's drafted right now, no. Agreed. And the amount of work it would take to get there, I'm not sure what you're achieving.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And to actually further more housing, which is the overall goal.
Well, and reduce the number of volunteers who want to serve.
Yes, that much.
That is not.
That is and town plans are already long.
Big deals.
Yeah.
Yeah, But I think a lot of, at least people in the communities, I sort of tend to find the planning commission a really productive and positive way to serve their town. I mean, I think people are pretty jazzed by serving on their planning
I
commission.
think so too. That's been my experience as well.
Well, working with you, of course. Great. Thank you. If that's okay, let's move forward with that, and that would be great. And we will be back after the floor. Keisha, do you have a notion of how long the floor is going to be this morning?
Is the constitutional amendment today or tomorrow?
I don't.
But I can't remember.
I can't remember either. Anyway, but we
Thanks for
will
the
be
work.
back right after the floor to address the transit corridors and the options before us on that. And you may want to stay for that too. And anyway, so thank you. We're going to go offline, go to the floor, and we'll chat with Cam.